Restart, he could feel his feet toes downwards sliding. Reset, he could feel his feet toes downwards sliding along behind him. His vision was blurred. He could just make out the reception desk with Rodriguez standing in front of it, but both of them were out of focus. He was bundled out through the door. There was no signs of a doorman, like the businessman. He must get out of sight as quickly as he could. Matt remembered the two cars parked at the front. They had been waiting for him, and he had just walked in and given himself up. They dragged him across to the first car, and one of the policemen fumbled in his pockets for his keys. That's left just two of them supporting Matt. Did he have the strength left to fight back? No, they were holding. No, they were holding him too tightly. What about his powers? Briefly, Matt remembered the cylinder exploded at Forrestal. It felt as if it had been. It felt it as it felt as if it had happened a century ago. He wondered if he could do something similar now, turn on the power and make the police car blow up. Send those two men sparring away like puppets in the wind. But it wasn't as easy as that. There was no switch he could throw. Whatever power he had, it still wasn't under his control. But then the policeman holding him on the side nearest to But the policeman holding on the side nearest to the car cried out and suddenly let go. Looking up, Matt saw blood pouring down his face. Had he done that to him? Matt was so shocked that for a moment he thought he had, but then he saw a fist-sized stone come flying through the air, and the second policeman staggered back, his hand clutching his face. Matt was clutching his face. Matt was free. He fell against the car and looked away. From the hotel down towards the main street, and there was the answer. Pedro, he was holding a slingshot made from a strip of some sort of black material, rubber or leather. He had used it twice with deadly occurrences, bringing down both policemen, but that still left one more. The one with the car keys. Matt shouted a warning as the man reached for his holster and pulled out a gun. But before it had come halfway out, Pedro swung the slingshot a third time. Another rock flashed through the air and slammed into the third policeman, catching him just above the eye. The man swore and dropped the gun. Matt Pedro called out his name. Matt looked back at the hotel doorway. Captain Rodriguez had appeared, alerted by the cries of his men. His own gun was in his hand. Quickly he took in what had happened. His men were hurt. The English boy was free, leaning against the car that should have been taken him away, and there was another boy with a catapult. Rodriguez took aim at the second boy. Matt divided forward and snatched up the dropped gun. He rolled over on his stomach and fixed 6 shots in the direction of the hotel. He wasn't sure if any of them it Captain Rodriguez, but he saw the senior policeman dive for cover behind a parked car behind the glass doors of the hotel shattered at the same time. An alarm went off inside the hotel. Matt dropped the gun and got in unsteadily to his feet. The first policeman that Pedro had hit was already recovering. Matt took one look at him and then, finding some last-hidden reserve of strength, lashed out with his foot. His toe cap came into with contact with soft flesh. He had kicked the man right between the legs, and he crumpled without a sound. Another rock slid past one of the policemen was it a second time and knocked off his feet, stumbling into the side of his car and setting off another alarm. The third had crawled away to hide. Matt, Pedro called again. Matt didn't need any more encouragement. With his hands gripping his stomach, he lurched forward. The Peveril boy waited for him, another stone ready in his slingshot in case anyone tried to follow, but nobody did. Pedro reached out and grabbed Matt, and together they ran off as fast as they could. The alarm bells were still ringing, and now they were joined by the scream of sirens as more police cars approached. Seconds later, they pulled up in front of the hotel. Captain Rodriguez had repaired his face, full of fury, but they were too late. The street was empty. The two boys had disappeared. An hour later, they were still running. Matt was astonished at how much energy Pedro seemed to have. After all, he looked as if he hadn't eaten for a week, but he had kept up the same pace ever since they had left the hotel, pushing only when a dirty blue van with barred windows and the words Polytechnical, painted on the side, come speeding past. When Pedro ducked behind what seemed to be an abandoned lorry, dragging Matt with him. He took one look at Matt and signalled for him to rest. The two of them sat on the pavement as he regained his breath. Matt remembered what Rodriguez had told him. He had no papers. He had entered Peru legally at the same time when the Nixons had struggled to forget passports had sounded like a good idea. But in fact, he and Richard had been delivered gift wrapped into the enemy hands. Matt couldn't prove who he was. There was no record of his arrival, and if he disappeared, nobody would know or care. Then Aspes, Pedro said, and stood up again. Matt understood it was time to go. They were in a wide, busy road somewhere on the edge of Lima, standing in front of a row of shops and restaurants, all of them missing their front windows and front doors. In fact, they had no fronts at all. They were like open boxes with their insides spilling out onto the streets, a smell of food mixing with the petrol fumes. Opposite them, a row of men in jeans and baseball caps sat slumped against a low concrete wall, seemingly with nothing to do. There were also a couple of clueless boys with crude wooden boxes stripped to their backs. The slight give Matt a joint day. We're both about 6 years old. Where are we going? Matt asked. Subscribe, hit the bell, tell like link, you can comment, screen, my thumbnail, lots of my videos from start to finish. Subscribe, hit the bell, thank you.